Some people say that the good old family saloon has had its day, but try telling that to Vauxhall. The Insignia, whether in saloon or hatchback guise, is still doing a roaring trade in this country, and that's showing very little sign of slowing down. So, what makes the Insignia such a popular choice? Well, it certainly doesn't hurt that it's a pretty handsome looking devil. Everywhere you look on the bodywork, you see bulbous curves and crisp lines, and the details are pretty interesting as well. The front end is dominated by this massive deep grille, and the headlamps sweep elegantly backwards. Towards the back of the car, you've got this nice tapering roofline, and then there's this chrome strip which connects the two intricately shaped rear light clusters. It's just a little bit of a shame that this rear wiper looks like a little bit of an afterthought. And it should be noted that not all Insignias look as good as this one, it being the snappily titled SRI VX line nav trim, which is about the sportiest version of the many, many available. The SRI badge accounts for the vast majority of the skirts and spoilers you see dotted around, not to mention these intricately styled and super cool 19-inch alloy wheels. Lesser versions don't get anywhere near the same amount of styling touches, but they still look smart because all versions come with alloy wheels and daytime running lights. Climb inside the Insignia, and it's fair to say that things aren't quite so stylish. The design's all rather bland and uninspiring, and the materials in here, which are hard and just a bit dull, simply don't have the luster of those you find in rival family cars. A Volkswagen Passat, for instance, feels much posher than this. The simple design does mean that the dashboard is fairly easy to navigate, but if you go for a version with satellite navigation, life isn't so straightforward. This system is touchscreen, but you can also select some and only some of the on-screen icons using this mousepad-like controller. It's an enormously distracting and imprecise way of doing things, and neither the screen nor the pad are sensitive enough, and the menus are arranged in a really bizarre way as well. Perhaps most crucially for a family car though, the Insignia does a disappointing job on practicality. The rear seats aren't particularly generous either for headroom or for legroom, and although the boot is big, you'll find inconvenient ridges in the floor and a massive load lip to haul heavy items over. Rivals like the Ford Mondeo and Volkswagen Passat are more spacious and more practical. Unfortunately, perhaps the most disappointing thing about the Insignia is the way it drives. The most important thing with any family car is a cosseting ride, and this thing just isn't as comfortable as a lot of its rivals. And it's not particularly entertaining to drive either, because it feels big and heavy and cumbersome, and the steering is a bit too numb. And while it looks great, the SRI VX line nav version we've got here is even more disappointing than most Insignias. With its big wheels and its lowered sport suspension, the ride absolutely falls apart. It doesn't deal well enough with potholes and bumps, and there's a constant jitter even on smooth surfaces. And what's more, the suspension revisions don't make the Insignia any more enjoyable in the corners. Of the simply enormous choice of engines that the Insignia has to offer, most people go for a diesel, and that's what we've got in this car, a 2-litre EcoFlex diesel with 138 brake horsepower. It's not short of punch and it delivers a reasonably broad spread of power, so performance is actually pretty good. However, the noise it makes is absolutely ridiculous. It sounds rough and grumbly at low revs, and when you work it harder, you can barely hear yourself think. Wind and road noise aren't all that well contained either, so as far as cruising refinement goes, the Insignia trails its rivals by a big margin. Where the Insignia does come into its own though, is on emissions. This engine, along with one or two others in the range, delivers a CO2 output of less than 100 grams per kilometre, and that makes it super cheap to run as a company car, and it's a big part of the reason why the Insignia is so popular. And an average fuel economy of more than 76 miles per gallon certainly doesn't hurt either. So, the Vauxhall Insignia falls a long way short of its best family car rivals in a number of areas, most notably refinement, ride comfort, practicality and interior quality. However, it does provide handsome looking transport and super low running costs for company car drivers, and that, it seems, is good enough for a lot of people. If you're one of those people, there's no harm giving it a look, but be sure to try a Ford Mondeo and Volkswagen Passat as well.